Hi there. This is my review of the Kel-Tec SU-16. This is actually the second SU-16 I've owned. The first one I purchased about a year and a half ago. I got it as a really good deal used, and I was happy with the rifle, but I saw another rifle that I really wanted to buy, so I sold my SU-16. I really should have picked another rifle to sell because I really found myself missing the SU-16. It was a lot of fun. It was compact, and I just really wish I hadn't have sold it. So here I am, a year and a half later, doing a review on my second one. Obviously, this is going to be a positive review. I did go to the trouble and find myself another one. I purchased this one used. You'll note in this video I pulled off the front sight. If I'd gotten the rear sight with the rifle, I probably wouldn't have bothered doing it. But seeing as I'm missing the rear sight, and I did get it a bit cheaper because of that. But because I'm missing the rear sight, I'm not going to bother getting another one. I figured I might as well pop off the front sight and at least streamline the rifle. The front sight weighs next to nothing. It's made out of aluminum. It's very nicely made. There's nothing wrong with the sights that do come with the rifle if you plan on using them. They're just fine. But I just wanted to streamline my rifle and just have one less thing for stuff to get caught on or whatever. I like to carry this around in a bag and so on and so forth, and the sight would just get caught on stuff, so I popped it off. How it'll affect barrel harmonics, I have no idea. I very much suspect it will have no impact whatsoever. If the accuracy degrades or improves because of it being off, I will annotate the video for it. I'm actually going to do a series of videos on this gun. The first part, which is this part, my intention is to discuss the features and the pros and cons of the rifle. Part 2 will be the accuracy regarding various types of ammo, including a few hand loads that I've started working up for this. And the third part will just be probably a pretty clumsy video of me disassembling and reassembling the rifle. I've actually already shot it, and I think I'll use that video and post it. It's probably not going to be fantastic, but it'll give you an idea of what the rifle's like to work with and just how difficult it is or isn't to clean. It's actually quite simple. Anyway, this is a Canadian SU-16, and as such, there's some differences that you'll see from any of the American variants. To be brought into Canada, Canadian gun laws have some strange things, and one of them require that the barrel be 18.5 inches. Most of the American SU-16s are 16 inches, I believe. Anything coming into Canada, it has to have the 18.5 inch barrel. What would happen if you tried to bring in the American 16-inch barrel? I'm really not positive. It would probably end up being a restricted firearm, but it could possibly fall into the prohibited class. I'm really not sure how it works. I just know that this is non-restricted, which means I can take it out in the bush and have fun with it, and it's not a big deal. If you're a Canadian, you know what I'm talking about. If you're an American and you're confused, well, just don't let gun laws get out of hand, and you won't have to worry about it. Another difference for the Canadian variant is stamped here on the receiver, and it's actually stamped in there, is 223. The American versions are either stamped or they could even be in the raised writing, much like the rest, 556. This rifle is actually chambered in 556, so you can shoot the surplus 556 ammo in it. It's built for it. But due to just the way Canadian gun laws are, they can't have 556 stamped on the receiver. They got to stamp it with 223. Stupid Canadian gun laws. No idea why or where the logic is behind it. There probably is none. I'm not going to get into a political discussion. This is going to be too long anyway, so that would just make it even worse if I started ranting on about Canadian gun laws. Anyway, let's get into the statistics of this. This particular rifle is 556, which means you can shoot 556 or 223 in it. The difference between 556 can be explained by other people probably far better than me. other than I have shot 5.56 in my bolt guns, and I find the bolt to be really tight closing, tight enough that I didn't want to do it too much. I basically fired a couple 5-round groups just to check accuracy, and I was inclined not to do too much more of it. It tends to be really hot out of the bolt actions, and I believe this shoulder is bumped ahead on 5.56, which is why the bolt is so hard to close, because there's plenty of room in the throat. So that's really the only dimension I could see that causes the bolt to bind so much. There's probably a far better scientific explanation of it. I'm just kind of stating my suspicions. I really don't know that much about it other than I'm not going to shoot. This is an actual Chinese 5.56 round, and I'm not going to shoot any more of it out of the bolt gun. It cycles absolutely beautifully out of this rifle. Everything I've fired out of my SU-16s has worked. I've never had a failure to feed or failure to eject in either of my SU-16s. I have heard people say they had problems with theirs and needed to break their guns in a bit. I haven't seen that at all. So you'll have to ask those people about their experiences. Maybe it was their ammo. Maybe brand new rifles require a break-in. Both the rifles I purchased were used, so maybe I'm just missing the break-in. This rifle, according to the seller, only had about 50 rounds through it. I tend to agree with what he had to say. I believe him, because this rifle was in absolutely pristine condition, including the bolt and inside the chamber, where on this kind of style it's really hard to clean. I'll actually prove this safe here on video, just to make everybody happy. There we go. Bolt locks back if you just push it up here if you don't have a mag in there. Just push up on this piece. And there we are, we're all clear. Lots of daylight in there. Anyway, getting on. Yes, it has an 18.5-inch barrel, which comes with a 1-in-9 twist. I've had okay luck with Sierra Match King 69 grain bullets out of this. I'm still working my loads, and I think I'm going to have some pretty good accuracy out of this rifle with Sierra Match King. I think it's going to stabilize quite nicely. So I am kind of glad it is a 1-in-9. At first I was thinking, gee, I wish it was it wasn't such a tight twist rate, and that way I could shoot a really high velocity light bullet out of there. But seeing as the Sierra Match Kings stabilize at 69 grains, I think I'm going to be happy with that. I should get enough velocity to maybe do some reach out and touch some stuff beyond 300 with it. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, moving on. The overall length of the rifle. Here, I'm kind of get a pan. I guess the video camera isn't catching the whole rifle. I don't have a lot of room to shoot this, unfortunately, and still have it be clear. The overall length of the rifle is 37.5 inches. And the compactness of the rifle is it folds in true Kel-Tec fashion. If you're not familiar with Kel-Tec firearms, make sure you go check out the Kel-Tec site and see their stuff. People tend to either love them or hate them. I'm obviously the latter. The former. I love them. I have 3 of their firearms and I enjoy them all. But anyway, in Kel-Tec fashion, the rifle folds. Folded without the scope sticking out here, it is 26.5 inches. Even with the scope sticking out like this, it fits in this largest gym bag quite nicely. Just sits in there nice, and I can just kind of pack stuff around it. It's also small enough that it can fit into a tennis racket bag, which is a really cheap way of having a good bag for this rifle. I have a sub 2K also, and I think I'm going to pick myself up a double tennis racket bag and just keep these rifles in that bag. It's really a cheap gun case. It's a gun case without the gun store price. Kind of a neat thing. But anyway, fold it up. It just kind of clips in there and just kind of holds it secure. This pin, if it's in the bag, you can shove it back in there and it probably won't go anywhere. Well, then again, maybe it will. you really want to be careful where you keep this thing. It is a 1/4 inch pin, so if you lose it, it's not a huge deal. You can, replace it with just a hitch pin from Canadian Tire or an RV supply store, anywhere that sells, trailer hitch accessories, so on and so forth. If you don't cut it down, it might look a little unwieldy, but it would work. Anyway, we'll just set that aside. Also, when you fold it, spin this around like that so I can actually work on it. You'll notice that all the trigger and hammer and safety, all that assembly folds down with the stock. The idea behind that is for it to be legal in Canada, you can't be able to remove the stock and still be able to fire the weapon. Once the stock's folded back, it's completely non-functional. The stock needs to be engaged for it to function. Now, if you pop the hammer like that, just pop it back down, throw the safety on, and then go like that. And that way you're not going to pop a hole in the bag you're carrying it in or damage this or get it caught on anything. It's just the best way to deal with it. And if the bolt's back like this and the chamber open and you have a cable through it, when you go to fold it, you're going to need the hammer in that position anyway for it to close. And moving on, okay, I haven't mentioned the weight. Without the scope on it, it weighs 5 pounds. It's actually just a tad under 5 pounds, I found. Probably the lightest semi-auto 223 you're gonna come across here in Canada. Extremely light. They really hit it out the park for coming up with a portable and light 223. This rifle delivers that in spades. They really did a good job with achieving that with this. Very unique in that way. The price of this rifle is $800. Usually you see it listed for $799. I've seen it at a bunch of different retailers. You can pick them up used for anywhere from $600 to $700. Beyond $700, if you wait it out, they can come down. If you can get mags with the rifle when you buy it, all the better. And they're worth spending a bit more money to get a few of them. Yes, it does use these. I'll go over that with the pros. Obviously, I'm very pleased with the rifle. I've had 2 of them, and I went to the trouble of buying a second one. Let's go over the pros. As I stated, it's very light. It folds, so it's compact. So between light and folding, this is the kind of thing you can kind of throw on the side of a backpack and carry with you while you're hiking or whatever if you feel the need, or just want to hike up to a spot to do some planking. This is a good rifle to do that with. It's not going to kill you to carry it along. And this is the big pro, is this rifle takes any of the standard AR-15 M16 mags. And most notably here in Canada, it takes the LAR-15 pistol magazines. Americans are going to probably be confused why I'm saying this is important, but in Canada, this is the only way we can legally carry a 10-round mag in our semi-auto rifle. Is these. It has to have an accompanying pistol mag that can be used in the rifle without alteration. Basically, a semi-automatic pistol can have 10 rounds, or a semi-automatic rifle can have 5 rounds. If you can get the pistol mag in the rifle, you're good to go. That's right, crazy Canadian gun laws. Now, I did get the plastic mags that come with the rifle. You get 2 of them. There's nothing terribly wrong with them. Problem is, they're pinned to 5 rounds. Well, at that point, I just kind of store them away and forget about them. I'm not even really going to show them. Really, these are better mags. They operate very nicely in the rifle. Make sure I got it the right way. Whoops. There. Just falls out. Perfect. The plastic mags that come with the rifle don't pop out quite that smoothly. You got to actually give them a little tug and get them out. Now, the plastic mags that do come with the rifle can pop into these slots in the stock, and you can store them in there. That's all very nice. Problem is, if you have actual ammo in them that's enough weight that when you're firing off the rifle, they'll just pop out of there and drop. And of course, where are they dropping? Straight down, right in front of your feet, which is fine if you notice them. If you don't notice them, or if they fall in a mud puddle, that's going to kind of be a drag. And you know what, I imagine there would be the risk that they would fall off while you're carrying the rifle around. And you know, it'd just be the way things go, that you'd be crossing a stream or something like that, or on a bridge or something, and you know, the mags would drop out and fall down into the water, and you'd have to go fetch them. Or if you didn't notice, you'd probably never find them again. So I'm not a fan of keeping magazines in here. My thoughts for this cavity of the stock is to either leave it empty, put together a cleaning kit, and then put a stock sock around it just to have a field kit for cleaning. You know, put a boar snake in a small little bottle of boar snake venom or gun oil in there, and maybe some other, you know, some patches, maybe one of those cleaning cables that Otis has. I'm really not sure what I'll do. Worst case scenario, you put a couple granola bars or chocolate bars in there and a couple elastic bands around it, and at least you're using the space. Whatever. My instinct is to keep my magazines in a pocket that has a flap with Velcro or a button or something. Just keeping magazines dangling over free space just does not appeal to me. Cool idea. No thanks. No thank you, Kel-Tec. Okay, and the next pro is the rifle's chambered in 5.56, giving you freedom to buy crazy cheap Chinese surplus 5.56 and have it work smoothly in the action, and safely, I may add. Another big plus is this is a non-restricted semi-automatic 223 that takes LAR-15 mags. Again, Americans are going to be confused by it. Don't worry about it. Canadian crazy gun laws. What this means to us Canadians is, in order to get something similar to this that takes this mag, is semi-auto and 223 or 5.56, you have to spend about $2,800 to get something similar. And this is $800. It's the cheapest way you're going to achieve that goal. And it's light and it folds, so on and so forth. So if that's the kind of thing you're looking at, that really throws a positive onto this. I think the other versions are Robinson Arms and Swiss Arms, those particular lines of rifles. And even right now, those rifles, there's some talk, and the RCMP wants to move those to restricted rifles. It's a big fight. I think we're going to win in the short term, but in the long term, I think that's a fight that we gun owners are going to lose come next federal election. Again, I don't want to discuss too many politics, but I'm not inclined to go spend $2,800 on a rifle that I'm going to have to fight tooth and nail in order to be able to shoot out in the bush. It's absolutely criminal that law-abiding citizens have to put up with that, but that's just the way Canada is, unfortunately. We have a lot of good things to say about our country, so there's always the bad that goes with the good, I suppose. Anyway, the last pro, and this one's arguable. A lot of people really hate this feature, and you really got to embrace Kel-Tec if you like it. I like it. It's functional, so it works for me, and that's it. And I can see a lot of people going, "Oh look, a plastic bipod," and they're not going to like it. It's functional, yes. It's part of the rifle anyway, so why not make use of it? You want to be able to swing this off in order to access this for cleaning. And if you see my disassembly and reassembly video, you'll see what I'm talking about. You need to get your mitts in there on this tube. So you need to have this come apart like this anyway to easy access and clean everything. So it makes sense. And having it usable as a bipod, you know what? It beats nothing. And you know what? You've without the scope on it, iron sights, you've got a 5-pound rifle with a bipod already incorporated into it. And it folds. What more can you ask? Fantastic. Even with the scope, I'm under 6 pounds actually. I think this scope's only about 14 ounces, so I'm under 6 pounds. Throw a mag in there with full of ammo, I'm sure I'm well over that, but, well, maybe not. 223 isn't that heavy. Keep thinking 308 when I'm playing around with this rifle. Anyway, the bipod is a kind of a mix of negatives and positives. You'll notice how high it sits. Really, if you're shooting this prone on the ground, relatively level, your stock is going to be sitting like that unless you're shooting the rifle off into space. So you're caught holding it. You're going to need something really big to pad under here. So like a bean bag or all that is not going to work. Or, you know, I usually will just use my fist with a regular 6x9 bipod and just kind of level my rifle like that and kind of do that. Can't do that with this. You actually have to get up and hold it just because the bipod is so long. Ideally, it would be better if it was about 2 inches shorter, but just due to the way they need that length in it to cover everything they need. I guess they could trim it down about an inch, but that wouldn't make enough of a difference. Another negative to the bipod is, well, at least for me, I tend to lean into my bipod to stabilize the rifle. Can't do that with this. If you pull it back, it only goes so far and kind of locks in, and then you could dig it in, but that's not going to help you stabilize the rifle really. Another thing is it is kind of floppy in there. The bipod really only stabilizes you this way. It's not going to, I guess it helps side to side a little bit, but it is kind of floppy on there. Again, better than nothing. And I would say the last negative to using the bipod would be this spring in here. Hopefully I can get the camera on this. But this spring is just held into these grooves by the spring's own tension. Now it is plenty tight, and you'd have to give it a good hard tug. But if you're in brush firing off this rifle and then you stand up, you may not notice that you've left behind this spring, and that would be kind of a pain in the neck to replace. I'm sure Kel-Tec would be more than happy to fire one in the mail and send it to you, but it's just one of those things. Yeah, you could epoxy the ends of the spring in there and it would probably hold just fine, but the intent is to be able to pull these 4-end pieces off. All you do is squeeze it together and these pins pop out and this whole assembly pops off, and you can access the entire gas block just in seconds. So the whole disassembly on the rifle is very, very quick. It's very easy to break it right down. You basically just need this and you can just start pushing the various little pins out and disassemble the bolt, the piston out of the gas tube and everything. It all comes apart quite nicely. The biggest con I see to this rifle, oh yeah, the bipod is useful for cleaning the rifle. It's nice to have it like that as a starting position, then fold it up and get your tube out or whatever, and you don't have the gun flopping around, particularly if you're in a spot where you're just sitting on the grass somewhere working on the rifle. You can have it like this and do all your cleaning and just have a little rag for the small parts so you don't lose them, and you're good to go for field cleaning. It is really nice that way. So the bipod does have some positives, and for me the positives outweigh the negatives. I'm glad they did it, and I wouldn't exchange the 4-end for an aftermarket 4-end. I'm going to keep it like that. The biggest con I see for this rifle is the thickness of the barrel. And the next, oops, hit the keyboard there. The next video I'm doing is on accuracy, and you'll see that when the barrel warms up, the groups loosen up quite quickly. I attribute that to the fact that they use such a thin barrel on this particular variant. On this side of the gas block, this gas tube is 0.75 inches. On this side, it's 0.6. My preference would be for them to have the gas block be a little bit meatier and have it just slide over and have a full 3/4 inch barrel all the way down the length of the weapon. I realize it would increase the weight a little bit, and obviously it'd be a little bit thicker here. Well worth it to me. For all I know, Kel-Tec did originally do that with the design, and just the accuracy didn't change enough, and figured they might as well knock the barrel down in diameter and ease the assembly of the rifle, and maybe it didn't have an effect on accuracy. But my suspicion is your follow-up groups would be quite a bit tighter if the barrel was heavier. Your cold bore 5-round group is quite decent if you're using the right ammo, as you'll see, but the second 5-round group loosens up quite a bit, usually double, with the exception of the Sierra Match King 69 grain. It seems to be much more consistent even with a hot barrel. It doesn't open up as much, which really gives me incentive to find that perfect hand load. So we'll see in the future how that all works out. So far I'm close, but I'm not quite there where I want to be on the hand loads. And as I say, you can see that in the next video. Competition for this rifle would be the Ruger Mini 14. The Ruger Mini 14, I honestly have never owned one. I've heard they're not terribly accurate. What that means and how specific that accurate or inaccurate Mini 14 is, I really don't know. I find the Mini 14 is about $100 more expensive than this in even the base model. It has a wood stock. There's specific types of scope mounts that you have to get for it. And it's 2 pounds heavier than this, and it doesn't fold. So I'm really not that interested in it, to be quite honest. When I start talking Ruger Mini 14, I start thinking, why not just use my SKS, to be quite honest. And I can't justify spending $900 for something my $150 SKS does just as well. This at least has some differences, and its portability is just, it can't be beat, and that's why this is such a positive rifle for me. Anyway, I guess I'll conclude with my accuracy with off-the-shelf ammo. Really varied. The best ammo was Hornady Steel Match, 52 grain boat tail hollow point, fairly inexpensive off-the-shelf ammo, and netted me about 1.5 MOA. I was shooting 1.7 inch groups at 106 meters, which is about 115 yards. So I figure that's pretty close to 1.5 at 100 yards probably. Close enough, maybe 1.6, but I consider that very good accuracy for a five round group out of a semi-auto, light, inexpensive rifle. I'm more than satisfied with that accuracy. If I get my hand loads beyond that, I expect to see me trying this rifle out at longer ranges just to kind of push its limits and see what it'll do. If I think I can get under 2 inches at 100 meters, that is easily accurate enough for me to try 300 meters and beyond with this rifle. I often find the Sierra Match Kings will stabilize even better up in the 250 meter range, so you won't necessarily multiply your MOA up double at 200 meters versus 100 meters. You'll find your group does get larger, but not nearly as large as you would think. So I think they are stabilizing a little bit beyond 100 meters at the velocities I'll be throwing this at. So we'll see. We'll see. All in all, happy with the rifle. I do highly recommend it. Go ahead and watch part 2 if you want more details on accuracy, and watch part 3 if you're interested to see the gun broken down. Have a good one.